Hello, my name's MOliveira, and today I'm doing my presentation on prevalence and correlates of poor self-rated health in the United States, the National Elder Mistreatment Study. And on the screen you can see the names of the authors of this study. So in this study, the authors stated that self-rated health continues to be accurate in predicting objective measurements of an individual's health as well as morbidity and mortality. And what that's saying is that if you state that you believe that your health is good, then a medical professional would most likely come to the same conclusion doing an examination. In younger age groups, domestic or other violence is the second leading predictor in health status. This study was looking at the relationship between self-rated health for those over age 60 and as it relates to elder abuse. And this is the first study that had been conducted looking at self-rated health and elder abuse. The method that was used. First, the sampling was done based on the U.S. Census information for size of place. So they were looking at proportions based on whether an area was urban or suburban. Next, they made randomized phone calls in those areas, and they asked the questions of those who were age 60 or older within a given household. This resulted in a sample size of 5,777 people. The questions were asked in either English or Spanish based on the respondents' preference for language. And then respondents were also asked if they were in a safe place. And sensitive questions such as those regarding sexual or physical abuse were asked to elicit yes/no answers. And this was done to protect the respondents in case somebody did overhear the conversation. They wouldn't be seen as giving information that could jeopardize their safety. So the following are the variables that were asked of respondents and the definitions. So first, respondents were asked to self-identify their health, and they were asked to identify it as either being excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. Those who responded excellent, very good, or good were identified as having good health, and those who reported as having fair or poor were identified as having poor health. For the demographic variables, they broke the respondents into two categories, those between the ages of 60 and 70, and those 71 years of age and older. Ethnicity was dichotomized into white and non-white. Employment status was dichotomized into employed or unemployed. Marital status had three categories, the first being married or cohabitating, the second being single, divorced, or separated, and the third being widowed. Income was categorized as a total household income of being either below $35,000 a year or $35,001 and above. And respondents were asked to self-identify their gender as being either male or female. They also looked at the mistreatment variables, which included physical mistreatment, sexual mistreatment, and experience of prior traumatic events, which included natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, or tornadoes. For the physical and sexual mistreatment, these were asked as yes/no questions to protect the safety of the respondents. They also looked at the social dependency variables, which included people having emotional support, people having somebody to help them, or having access to senior centers, day programs, Meals on Wheels, or in-home services. So in the results, only 22.3% of respondents self-reported their health as being poor. Age was not a determining factor for self-identifying as having poor health. In the initial three models, looking at demographics, mistreatment, and dependency, they show that those at greater risk of poor self-reporting of health were those who were non-white, those who were divorced, separated, or single, those with a household income of less than $35,000 a year, those who'd experienced physical or emotional abuse, or who had a lifetime history of prior traumatic events, and those having a low social support structure. Further multivariable analysis using the previously identified factors determined the significant independent variables predicting poor health. These included being unemployed, having a household income of less than $35,000 a year, prior physical abuse, and having a low social support system. The reported numbers of sexual abuse were very low and were not a significant predictor at all of poor self-reporting of health. Strengths from this article were that participants were asked if they were in a safe place to answer questions. So the people calling were very aware that some of these questions could elicit angry responses if there was somebody who overheard it and didn't like the response that the elder gave. Also, the fact that sensitive questions were asked to elicit a yes-no response, again for the same reason. And also the fact that 69% of those called participated in the study, which is really high. Normally, you don't get numbers quite that high. Some of the weaknesses were the fact that the participants were selected using a random phone number dialing within the areas designated by the census based on size of place or looking at rural versus urban. So we don't really know if they got a good cross-section of people of different ethnic groups and people of different really socioeconomic statuses. Also the fact that the questions were only available in English and Spanish. So those whose primary language was other than that were completely left out. They did not include individuals with no home phone, so they did not look at people who were institutionalized, such as in a skilled nursing, or people who only had cell phones. And they also failed to measure cognitive functioning as a covariate. So they relied on the people asking the questions to determine if they thought somebody had cognitive impairment, and if they did, then they would disqualify them from the study. But there was no real hard guidelines as to how to determine somebody's cognitive functioning. Thank you very much for watching my presentation. If you have any questions about the presentation or the article, please feel free to email me at the email address on the screen. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a great day.